Alright, I'm going to attempt to show you a video of how I plant garlic. And I already planted my main crop. I'm just going to add a few more of chestnut red. Just a few of them, so they're not going to be spaced exactly like I would normally do in rows, just a few here and there. But this is chestnut red. Do not eat just means that this is my seed garlic that I had set aside so we don't accidentally eat it before I get it planted, like has happened in the past. Now I already broke up the clove, or the bulb into cloves, but this is how I do it. This is German white, which is my favorite. I take a butter knife and I use the back end that doesn't have the serration so I don't accidentally damage the garlic, or at least that's the intention. And I find where there's a groove in between and I push it in there. And usually that separates them enough, but sometimes I got to give it a twist to get the first one started. And then you just break them apart. One of the reasons I like this German white is because it has large cloves, and they're around the central stalk. It's in just one layer, and they're really easy to peel. And I like the flavor, of course, which is the main reason I grow it. But this is a chestnut red, which is in a different category than the German white, and it produces smaller cloves for me, and they're kind of like, it's not quite a double layer around the central stalk, it's more like one or 1.5 bigger layers and then some small ones inside, so they're different sizes. And there were more. This is from, I think, 2 bulbs. Here you can see how this is still together. But they produce, you have to go through a lot more bulbs because there's a lot of tiny cloves that I don't bother planting. I just set them aside for us to eat first. So I just pull out the bigger ones of what I separated from the bulbs. Okay, I'm done with that. Alright, so for spacing garlic, you want to do about 6 inches apart. You could do closer, but the bulbs will be a little bit smaller. You could do further apart, but I don't really think there's a necessity to do that. So you aim for 6 inches. So you could use something like this. You can use something like this. You can use something that has a known measurement. Like this is a little under 6 inches. So you can lay it down and mark the ends, and that's approximately 6 inches. Or you could just eyeball it, which is what I do. Because it's not rocket scientists, or rocket science. You just go with it. Channel your inner gardener. So I'm going to plant just 3 here. But before you get into that, you could, when I plant, is this in screen? Sorry, I'm not used to taking videos. I just, estimate approximately 6 inches apart in one row, and then in the next row I stagger it so it's in between these two, and the next one's in between these two. So once you get the first row in how you want it, then you just eyeball it in between and keep going down the long row. So, but like I said, for this I'm not even going to bother with that. For years I would, there's all different kinds of way to plant. For years I would just push them down into the soil with the tip of my finger, eventually ending on the tip of the clove, and then when my soil hits up to here, I stop pushing. So that gets it. Where's my little tape measure? And it's out of reach. Let me grab it. That's what I get for tossing things away. So if my finger were on the top of that and I would stop when the soil got to there, then that would be about 4 inches, 4.5 inches or so. And that's what I tend to plant at. I have planted more shallowly where the tip is just covered, but since we do get cold frozen winters and I want to minimize frost heave, and I don't put on a really thick layer of mulch like some people do, I just plant them a little bit deeper. Okay, orientation. A lot of people don't know this, but you know how the clove has a distinct shape to it. You got the round, you got the 2 flat planes, and you got kind of like the sharp edge. When this grows, say you plant it this way with the curve away from you, the leaves, the stalk will come up and then the leaves will fan out that way. The leaves fan out from these flat sides. And they don't fan out from the skinny side or the wide curved side. So if you were trying to maximize how much sunlight your cloves got, you can orient them a certain way if you want. I know somebody who plants them 6 inches apart in a row, but then he allows 12 inches between his rows, and he orients his cloves so the leaves go out and fan into that 12-inch space so they get more sun. Personally, I don't think that's really a necessity, but if you want your rows to look neat, or you just kind of experiment and want to have fun, you can orient them certain ways. This year I oriented them this way so that the round side faced either due north or due south, and the leaves would go out east and west. But usually I just don't even pay attention, but I did this year just to experiment and have fun. Alright, I'm going to stand up. Okay, so hopefully I get this all on screen. Like I said, I'm not used to using cameras. So I'm just going to put 3 in here, probably here, here, and here. And that's more than 6 inches apart, but that's okay. Can you see? Yeah, okay. What I used to do is just take it, push it down into the soil. This works only if you have loose soil, which I guess mine's a little compacted right now, and then push the tip. Yeah, that's not working so well. So I guess my soil isn't as loose as I thought. But you can do that. You could just push them down in. But what I do now is I use this narrow hand trowel. You can use a wider one, but it disturbs the soil more. And when I garden, I try my best not to disturb the soil too much, because every time you disturb the soil, you're bringing more seeds up to the surface to germinate. And I try to minimize that. So this is 4 inches mark from the tip, but I already have, I don't know, maybe 1.5 inches of compacted mulch there. So what I do is I push it down into the soil up to about here or so, and when I pull it back out, the whole back feels a little bit, and then I stick this in. So when it's all said and done, the clove is approximately 4 inches deep. It can be less shallow, or yeah, it could be not as deep, and that's perfectly fine. So I take it, shove it down in, pull it towards me. With my other hand, I push the clove down, and then pull it out, push it together. And that's planted. Hopefully you can see this. Push it in, pull it towards me, put the clove in. That's it. And that's planted. Now this is the leftover mulch that I put on in the spring. And I am going to put just a little bit more on, just to remind me that I already planted something there. I already have the plan, my garden layout in my mind, but you know, accidents happen, and I want to make sure I don't accidentally plant something else there. So, alright, see if I can get this. Sorry, I'm using a tripod, and I'm trying to make this work. Okay, this is what I use for mulch. It's pine shavings I get from Tractor Supply, and it comes in different sizes. I get the fine just because it decomposes faster, and I find the wider, or I find the finer is easier for me to spread between plants when I'm spreading between plants than the wider. The wider stuff we use in our dog run where they go to the bathroom, and it takes longer for it to break down. So you can use either, or you can use whatever you prefer, doesn't matter. But looks like this. So this is where I planted the garlic. So I'm just going to spread some there. Put this down. Grab some. Be right back. There. So this space is mulch, so I know that something's planted there. Now, let's see if I could do this. Alright. What else was I going to say? So this is where I planted garlic. On the 15th, I put one kind in the front there and a different kind in the back, and I ran out of the mulch that I had open now, so I'm going to mulch that a little bit more. And this year I just put some extra things that I had made years ago in between the varieties just to keep them separated. And I'll plant some nasturtiums or alyssum or something in there. I have, hold on a second, walk around. Last year, I have cages in this bed now that weren't there. Last year I planted onions in this bed, and this is a nasturtium that had self-seeded, and it was shaded out by the onions, so it didn't grow. It's just like one spindly little stem with a few leaves on it. But after I harvested the onions, it got huge. So this year, I'm going to try to purposely do that. I'm going to purposely plant nasturtiums or alyssum, which had the same sort of effect when I planted it under tomatoes. It didn't get big until they got more sun. So I'm going to plant them early, and then once I harvest the garlic, or I'm going to plant them early so they sprout and they'll be little plants, and then when I harvest the garlic, hopefully they'll grow really fast because they have a nice developed root system and will fill in there. So that's what I'm going to do this year. And then I planted another kind of garlic here, just 2 rows, and another kind of garlic here, just 2 rows. So that's how I plant garlic. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. Thanks for watching.